Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mission Millennial Z Alpha Generations, where we share the other side of the creation story with today's youth. In today's video, which is a audio-visual track based off this paper track that I wrote called Why Atheistic Evolution is Unscientific. It's basically a threefold 8.5 by 11 track that we hand out at college campuses and on high school campuses. And this track is based off of this excellent book called Icons of Evolution, Science or Myth. Hopefully you can see that. Why Much of What We Teach About Evolution is Wrong by Jonathan Wells. Now, I don't think I did justice condensing this book down into a simple 8.5 by 11 trifold track, but I gave it the good old college try. You should really get the book and read it over thoroughly. It's eye-opening. And Jonathan is a fellow at the Discovery Institute, this institute that I think Stephen Meyer is the head of. Anyway, as an FYI, they're all old Earth creationists. Now, the reason why I bring that up, some people will say, oh, only younger creationists are against evolution. But really, old Earth creationists are too. At least they're against atheistic Darwinian evolution. At least many of them are. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you do, like it and subscribe. And more importantly, share it with someone you think might be benefited. Thank you. Have a good day. Why atheistic evolution is unscientific. Were we created by a supernatural God or a freak evolutionary accident? Did you know, 1, Darwin's atheistic tree of life theory that all living things descended by chance from a common ancestor has been archaeologically uprooted? 2, fraudulent, decades-old evolution arguments are still found today in high school and college textbooks? Why must they use such arguments? Richard Dawkins, famous atheist and author of The Ancestor's Tale, A Pilgrimage to the Dawn of Evolution, wrote, quote, "The fact that life evolved out of nearly nothing some 10 billion years after the universe evolved out of literally nothing is a fact so staggering that I would be mad to attempt words to do it justice." Emphasis mine, end of quote. Hoffman Mifflin, Cardcore, page 613. In our track, Nothing Disproves Atheism, download at christianproofs.net, we debunk the atheist assertion that literal non-existence accidentally fathered our precisely fine-tuned universe at its Big Bang beginning. The scientific evidence points towards a supernatural creator being responsible for the beginning of time, space, and matter. But what about the atheist's sequel fact claim that life evolved out of nearly nothing in a second undirected freak accident? Darwin didn't discuss the origin of life itself. In 1859, Charles Darwin wrote The Origin of the Species. He claimed by the mechanism of natural selection acting on random mutations, the first self-replicating cell slowly evolved into all today's living creatures, like a single seed becoming a tree with many branches. But incredibly, Darwin never addressed the ultimate origin of the species. That is, how that so-called first cell, seed, got here. He just wrongly presumed its naturalistic origin to have a foundation upon which to build his theory. Why? On atheism, evolutionists cannot propose a plausible mechanism to explain the origin of complex, specified information necessary to construct the first living cell. The cell is more complex than the space shuttle or any computer program designed by man. High information content always traces back to a mind. Atheism cannot posit a mind at life's beginning. It logically follows that the same intelligent mind who have fine-tuned the universe also programmed the first life. Dawkins inadvertently confirms this by admitting, quote, nobody has any idea, end quote, how the first life started. Interview with Ben Stein in Expelled, No Intelligence Allowed. What? Atheists from Darwin to Dawkins don't know how life started, but they dogmatically assert evolution did it and God did not? This is the error of assuming the conclusion, otherwise known as begging the question. A mindless, nearly nothing has no innovative potential. Therefore, nearly nothing can't pull off the greatest creation event of all time. That is, the sublime invention of intelligent life possessing brains more complex than any structure in the universe. It's illogical to ascribe staggering creative powers to it when secular scientists, with all the necessary chemicals for life in hand, have failed to produce even a single living cell. Tragically, academia brainwashes our youth and culture with invalid proofs for atheistic evolution. To rebut these, we will be quoting extensively from Jonathan Wells' must-read expose book, Icons of Evolution, Science or Myth, Why Much of What We Teach About Evolution is Wrong. Regenerate Publishing Incorporated, 2000. Excellent book, by the way. I would recommend everyone read this. It's a good primer into the subject. Jonathan holds a PhD in molecular and cell biology and is a senior fellow at the Discovery Institute. For your information, my theistic conclusions aren't necessarily those of Wells or the Discovery Institute. Wells establishes the focal point of his book, quote, like change over time, descent with modification within a species is utterly uncontroversial. But Darwinian evolution claims much more. In particular, it claims that descent with modification explains the origin and diversification of all living things, end quote, page 5. Number 1, evolution icon. Darwin's atheistic tree of life. Wells' response, quote, of all the icons of evolution, the tree of life is the most pervasive because descent from a common ancestor is the foundation of Darwin's theory. Yet Darwin knew, and scientists have recently confirmed, that the early fossil record turns the evolutionary tree of life upside down. 10 years ago, it was hoped that molecular evidence might save the tree, but recent discoveries have dashed that hope. Although you would not learn it from reading biology textbooks, Darwin's tree of life has been uprooted. When Darwin wrote The Origin of the Species, the oldest known fossils were from a geological period known as the Cambrian. But the Cambrian fossil pattern didn't fit Darwin's theory. The Cambrian starts with the abrupt appearance of many fully formed phyla and classes of animals. In other words, the highest levels of the biological hierarchy appeared right at the start. Darwin was aware of this and considered it a major difficulty for his theory. He wrote, quote, "If the theory be true, it is indisputable that before the lowest Cambrian stratum was deposited, long periods elapsed in which the world swarmed with living creatures," end quote. Yet he acknowledged that, quote, "several of the main divisions of the animal kingdom suddenly appear in the lowest known fossiliferous rocks," end quote. Darwin called this a serious problem, which may be truly urged as a valid argument against the view here entertained. That's pages 31 and 35. Number 2, evolution icon. Haeckel's faked drawings. Ernst Haeckel, 1868 to 1908, drew pictures of similarities of early embryos showing that amphibians, reptiles, birds, and human beings are all descended from a fish-like ancestor. Page 6. Wells' response. Darwin concluded that early embryos show us more or less completely the condition of the progenitor of the whole group in its adult state. In other words, similarity in early embryos not only demonstrate that they are descended from a common ancestor, but also reveal what that ancestor looked like. Darwin considered this by far the strongest single class of facts in favor of his theory. German biologist Ernst Haeckel's embryos seem to provide such powerful evidence for Darwin's theory that some version of them can be found in almost every modern textbook dealing with evolution. Yet biologists have known for over a century that Haeckel faked his drawings. Vertebrate embryos never looked similar as he made them out to be. Furthermore, the stage Haeckel labeled as first is actually midway through development. The similarities he exaggerated are preceded by striking difference in earlier stages of development. Although you might never know it from reading biology textbooks, Darwin's strongest single class of facts is a classic example of how evidence can be twisted to fit a theory. Pages 81 through 83. Number 3, evolution icon. Pepper moths on tree trunks showing how camouflage and predatory birds produce the most famous example of natural selection. Page 6. Wells' response. Peppered moths do not rest on tree trunks in the wild, and photos showing them on tree trunks have been staged. Kettlewell's experiments are now being questioned. Page 260. Number 4, evolution icon. The Miller-Urey experiments. A laboratory flask containing a simulation of the Earth's primitive atmosphere in which electric sparks produce the building blocks of living cells. Page 6. There's the illustration. Wells' response. The Miller-Urey experiment probably did not simulate the Earth's early atmosphere. It does not demonstrate how life's building blocks originated. Page 256. Number 5, evolution icon. Homology in vertebrate limbs. These are, quote, similar bone structures in a bat's wing, a porpoise's flipper, a horse's leg, and a human hand that indicate their evolutionary origin in a common ancestor. Page 6. Wells' response. If homology is defined as similarity due to common ancestry, it cannot be used as evidence for common ancestry. Whatever its cause may be, it is not similar genes, page 260. Number 6, evolution icon. Archaeopteryx is, quote, a fossil bird with teeth in its jaws and claws on its wings, the missing link between ancient reptiles and modern birds, page 6. Wells' response. Paleontologists now agree that Archaeopteryx is not the ancestor of living birds, and its own ancestors are the subject of the most heated controversies in modern science. The missing link, it seems, is still missing, page 112. Number 7, evolution icon. Darwin's finches. Darwin, quote, observed 13 separate species of finches that diverged from one when natural selection produced differences in their beaks, page 6. Wells' response. The Galapagos finches did not inspire Darwin with the idea of evolution. An oscillating selection on their beaks produces no observable net change. Wells, page 260. My comment. Darwin started with a bird and ended up with a bird, not one species evolving into another. For nearly 2 centuries, Darwinists have no idea how that first cell originated or where the missing link is. Actually, their whole chain is missing. Yet they called their theory a fact in spite of the fossil record, which records the sudden appearance of an orchard of life, not a tree. Confirmation that a supernatural creator made all living things simultaneously. Number 8, evolution icon. 4-winged fruit flies with an extra set of wings, showing that genetic mutations can provide the raw materials for evolution, page 6. Here's the 2-winged fly, and then here is the 4-winged fly. Wells' response. 4-winged fruit flies must be artificially bred, and their extra wings lacked muscles. These disabled mutants are not raw materials for evolution. Page 260. Number 9, evolution icon. Horse fossils. A branching tree pattern of horse fossils that refutes the old-fashioned idea that evolution was directed. Page 6. Wells' response. Evidence from fossil horses does not justify the claim that evolution was undirected, which is based on materialistic philosophy rather than empirical science. Page 260. Number 10, evolution icon, from ape to human. Drawings of ape-like creatures evolving into humans, showing that we are just animals and that our existence is merely a byproduct of purposeless natural causes, page 6. Wells' response. Many human-like fossils have been found since 1912, and unlike Piltdown, some have distinctly ape-like features, while others are more human-like. But even genuine fossils that bear on human origins have typically been so controversial that in 1970, British anthropologist John Napier called them bones of contention. In 1982, American paleontologists Niles Eldredge and Ian Tattersall noted that it is a myth that the evolutionary histories of living things are essentially a matter of discovery. If this were really true, they wrote, one could confidently expect that as more hominid fossils were found, the story of human evolution would become clearer. Whereas, if anything, the opposite has occurred. Just recently, National Geographic magazine commissioned 4 artists to reconstruct a female figure from casts of several fossil bones thought to be from the same species. One artist drew a creature whose forehead is missing and whose jaws look vaguely like those of a beaked dinosaur. Another artist drew a rather good-looking modern African-American woman with unusually long arms. A third drew a somewhat scrawny female with arms like a gorilla and a face like a Hollywood werewolf. And a fourth drew a figure covered with body hair and climbing a tree with beady eyes that glare out from under a heavy gorilla-like brow. This shows clearly how a single set of fossil bones can be reconstructed in a variety of ways, some looking for an intermediate form, for someone looking for an intermediate form to plug into an ape to human sequence can pick whichever drawing seems to fit best. Pages 219 through 220. My conclusion. The reason evolutionists, after centuries of research, must use weak or downright fraudulent arguments is pure and simple. They have nothing better to offer. This explains why some, not all, employ dishonest tactics to stop open-minded critique of Darwinism in its tracks. For example, quote, don't listen to those creationists, end of quote. Many theists cower in fear of being tagged as politically incorrect creationists by cancel culture academics. Or, quote, theists are science deniers who believe in the flying spaghetti monster, end of quote. The fact that they use such tactics instead of engaging with our actual arguments is telling. Most theists, not all, practice the truly scientific way of providing students with the best arguments both sides of the origin questions have to offer. In stark contrast, many leading atheists forbid an intelligent design alternative to even be considered in classrooms. But because we have the truth, we have nothing to suppress or misrepresent. Todd Weiner, ChristianProofs.org, 484-400-4816. If you wish to partner with our mission, here are 2 ways you can do so. Share the links to these audio tracks with Christian and secular school-age kids to immunize them from atheistic cancel culture indoctrination. 70% of our Christian youth reject Christ by the time they leave secular college. And that's a shocking statistic, by the way. Don't assume that because they go to church, they will be okay. And bear in mind that secular kids also overwhelmingly reject their natural predisposition towards theism during their college years. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel and pass on our link to others. And if you want paper copies of my narrated tracks for mass distribution, email me at christianproofs@yahoo.com or go to my website christianproofs.net to download the text or link of the following 2 tracks. 1, the scientific and historical evidence for God and Christ is awesome. 2, the real Christ, myth or savior. Or go to christianproofs.net to print out a tri-fold paper copy that you can fold and share with others. Here are the trifold tracks.